show is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and so if you add in sound check and a little bit of warming up. I try to keep the playing at a minimum, actually, when I'm performing, because I like to save all my energy up for the show. And if I pick up a guitar during the day, I may actually play my best while I'm sitting there in the hotel room, and then when I get to the venue, I may sort of not be thinking about music anymore, so I never like that to happen. If I'm at home and I'm writing, I may play 8 hours a day. If we're recording an album, we'll go up to maybe 10 hours. But all those really long periods of practicing, that was when I was really young. And that's only because you make so many mistakes. I wouldn't recommend length as a method of getting better. It's only if you're, let's say you're trying to learn a scale in every key, everywhere on the guitar, harmonized in every possible way. That may just take so much work to the point where you can memorize it. But once you learn it, a 13-hour practice routine shrinks to 45 minutes because you just don't make any mistakes. So there's no reason to go over stuff anymore. You know what I mean? So, maybe you can sacrifice a month of your life to a ridiculous practice routine. But I'd be very careful to avoid any kind of pain because, once you get into any kind of repetitive stress injury, you kind of own that for the rest of your life. It's very hard to get rid of it. So I don't see any point, really, when you weigh the dangers against the benefits. It's better to practice for an hour than to do something else and then, get back to it later on in the day, or just don't be in such a hurry. Bet on a long life and lots of opportunities to practice. Yeah.
What's the crown jewel of your guitar collection?
Well, it changes quite a bit. According to the outside world, it would be a 69 maple cap Olympic White Stratocaster. That would be the fetish guitar for any singer's nut. And I just happened to have one. I wasn't looking for it, but a friend of mine who's a guitar dealer called me up one day and he said, "You won't believe what I have." And you come across, I don't know how many there are in the world that were actually made that year, because Hendrix was the one who requested it. We made a few for him, a few people saw him play it, and they got it. But after that, they went to solid maple necks as soon as they hit the second half of 1970. I think less than 12 months where they made those guitars. And so I'd say some people probably think that is.
Are there too many custom-made guitars or manufacturers or versions or bulky or how many are there too many or too few or
Of what?
custom-made guitars or manufacturers or how many
No,
people?
more the merrier. Yeah. Because every builder, if they're good, they've got their own ear as to what they're trying to attain with a custom-made instrument. So you never know. I mean, if we didn't have all that sort of competition, you wouldn't have, let's say, a Turner guitar, which is very unique. I don't know who plays it outside of music, but he has a unique sound as an approach, so it's kind of nice that there's this offbeat maker guitar maker. There's a website called Destroy All Guitars, which is run by Cliff Contrary. And Cliff signed me and Steve and Alan Holsberg, John Locke, they recommended years ago, a guitar player in his own right. But he is an agent for independent builders. And I'm always shocked when I go to the website to see how many incredibly talented independent builders there are out there. The only downside of it is that those guitars are made by one person and they spend hours and hours, weeks and weeks and months, sometimes years making these things. So they are expensive. There's no, they're made in a garage or a kitchen or living room or something like that. And every guitar is a labor of love. So the average person can't afford to lay down $8,000 just to get a guitar. We're all looking for a $350 guitar. Which is where the big companies really help out. Fender, Ibanez, they have great designs that don't take a whole bunch of money to make, especially Fender. They use Stratocasters and a Telecaster, which is brilliant designs made by a guy who wanted to make sure that a guitar could be serviceable when it came back to the shop. so he designed a thing with screws that come apart, only for his own benefit. He wasn't really thinking about musicians, but inadvertently he built two standard guitars that even when you build them with the cheapest woods, they still sound good. I think there's really
What's the best type of wood you use?
Oh, there's so many. Depends on what you want to sound like. Yeah.
Do you have any new equipment coming out that you can talk about, or any other things to buy?
Oh. Yes. Just the customer I want to talk to. The last year and a half, I've been working with Marshall, and we've been modifying these JVM 410 heads, and I've been touring with them, and they're fantastic. And I've got 4 prototypes out with me tonight, so you'll get to hear it tonight. Although this hall is notoriously reverby, so it's just a ton of reflection everywhere. So you kind of sort of hear it in the soup of the place, But it's a very punchy sounding Marshall, but it still has the 4 channels and 3 modes for each channel, so it's incredibly versatile. It's all tube, and the designer, a guy named Santiago Alvarez, is just a fantastic guy to work with. He's a guitar player himself, but a bona fide engineer. Spanish guy who lives in Hong Kong. It's very interesting doing all the R&D, but they make them and they get them wherever I am in the world, and they've been sounding really great. So, but it's going to take at least a year. Manufacturing for something like that takes a long time to get right.
Does that mean no more PV? Or
Yeah, I left PV as soon as we started the Chickenfoot tour in Europe. That was the end of the PV thing for me.
Was that your preference, or something?
Sorry?
Was that your preference to leave PV, or?
Yes, yeah. I found that both Sammy and I had a sort of an epiphany when we did the small tour first. We played in these small 400-seat clubs for about 3 weeks to see what it was like to be a new band before the record came out. And it was a great experience, just for performing and getting tight with the 4 guys, But he was playing crate and I was playing PV, and we both came back saying we can't do that anymore. It just wasn't dynamic enough. They would kind of hit a wall and stay there. So we spent an afternoon at his studio playing a bunch of our old Marshalls, and after that we said, okay, that's what we're going to do. And so Marshall had stuff waiting for us in Vienna when we started the tour, and it was kind of crazy starting a tour with amps you've never played before. But it was fun having that Marshall sound back behind me. Because up until PV, I'd played them for 30 years, so I was sort of had an intimate relationship with the way those amps behaved. So it's nice to be back. Yeah.
What is your favorite song?
In the world? My favorite song? Oh, I never listen to my stuff.
So tonight, what was the combination of the guitar and amp for the show tonight? That's the JS guitar?
Yeah, the JS model. I have 2 of my original JS 2400s, which is the 24-fret model.
Okay.
And the white one is just right off the shelf. It's the archetype for that one. And I've got an orange one that was supposed to come out looking like a 1963 Charger Hugger orange color. It came out looking a little bit like candy corn instead. When I got them, I thought, I don't know if anyone would ever buy an orange guitar like that. So I think it was missing the white stripe and chrome and stuff. But it was, the orange one has got alder wood in it, and it's got a bigger stripe in the neck, a small one. And I was, a lot of the Ibanez guitars have that bigger stripe, and it adds a lot of strength to the neck. But my feeling is that when it gets too big, it starts to add stuff in that you don't necessarily want to get. Yeah. And this is it's something that the same thing happens with amps, is that there's a guitar store experience that all manufacturers aim towards. And it's when the customer goes into the store and they're in a room like this that's pretty dead, and they plug into an amp. When that experience happens, they just want to impress that potential buyer as much as possible. Yeah. So whatever resembles the kitchen sink sound ability, that's what they want to get out of the amp. And it just turns out that's the opposite of what we use as professionals when we're making records or when we're on stage. We're not looking to cover all rounds. We're actually looking to fit in with the drummer, the bass player, keyboard player, the other guitar players. So we're really talking about something that's a little bit more under control. And I found that the biggest stripe, the really thick one, really adds that sort of resonance area that amps put out, which is about 100 hertz, which is boominess, which makes up for things that are trying to, like small boom boxes when they want to make you think they've got a lot of low end, they just boost that. That's actually not. You want a little bit of everything all the way down to 30 hertz. So we made the stripe over and over again when we were making these prototypes smaller and smaller until we got to the smallest. And that together with the alder I thought was quite interesting, but I couldn't really decide whether it was better than the basswood and no big stripe. Most people that I work with in San Francisco would always say they liked the basswood because they thought it was more musical. And just last night, a friend of mine who used to run PV and now works for a different company, he said that he preferred the white guitar as well, sitting in the audience, because he thought it cut a little bit better. And so I think that the alder and the stripe actually adds to the guitar store experience. And I'm obviously not immune to that either, because at home I felt it. And I think it's just maybe because it vibrates against your chest while you're playing it, and you think there's more happening, but it doesn't really get out there to the audience.
Okay.
So, and the Marshall amp, we talked about that.
Yes,
So,
Marshall amp, yes. Yeah.
and pedal-wise, I don't think there's anything new out there that I've got on the board.
I can't wait to listen to the combination. Yeah, because I tried the amp, your amplifier in Hong Kong, because I just came back from town. I'm from Macau combinations.
Okay.
Okay. And
Which amp though are you talking about?
Yeah, the JV amp.
Oh, JV
JV
410.
Yeah. I tried because I have a chance to see the track the new Gibson and the Fender or something over there, and I like the JV amp a little bit more low model than yours.
The 210?
Yeah.
Yeah. The 210.
The
what I remember
is
the lead channel on the 210 is like channel 3 on the 410. No, sorry, channel 4 on the 410.
Yeah.
It's funny. I started out with the 410. I went to the 210s for most of the chicken foot thing. And then found that I didn't have enough, channel selectability.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But the model that we're working on is, I got to say, the architecture of how it works for a guitar player is the same. It's got 4 channels. It's got 3 different modes for each channel.
Yeah.
Switchability. We got rid of the reverb and we put in a noise gate for each channel, which is much more useful. See, because when you play like this, you don't want reverb in the house.
Yeah, because and also the
so you don't
reverb
it's for amateur songs. Leave that alone. So the noise gate is in there in place. We got rid of the parallel effects because nobody understands how to use it. They just went to this.
Yeah, because 10 years ago, I'm in the same place, and with you in here, in the plane, I want to
10 years ago that I was using 6100.
Yep. And that time you are only because the pianist cannot come to Canada, so you take the whole thing.
Yes.
3 pieces.
Right.
Yeah. That's a very awesome show. Yeah. And also one thing is for all of them, I want to say something. But because you need to talk to pianist, because I can't find any JS model in Canada.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and North America. And also, a lot of models they don't have in Canada. That's true. Yeah, he bought it from Japan. Yeah, we're lucky for it. Yeah, even in Hong Kong they don't have it. Only in Japan they have it. And we will go to a lot of spaces to find the JS model.
I've never seen them hanging in stores either. I always wonder.
That's why you need to talk to someone. And I
want to buy them up.
We'll buy them up.
You should try eBay.
Your last album, Professor Session Fan Plus,
Yes.
you dedicated 2 songs to Aşık Veysel.
Yes.
What's the story behind it?
We went to Istanbul 4 years ago, 5 years ago, something like that. We just had a great time there. It was one of those stops on a tour where, because of its distance from everything else, we were there for about 4 days. And the promoters there were so kind to us. They did everything they could to get us to have a good time and to learn about where we were and what we might be missing. And so I wound up getting all these CDs of his, and I just fell in love with the guy's voice, and I started to read about what he was singing about. I don't understand it when he's singing, but I can see some of the translations. And I just thought it was really beautiful, and the music. I thought it would be very exotic sounding to my ear, but it wasn't. It seemed to have you'd have to call it a universal appeal, because if you know blues from the U.S. and from Africa and music from around the world, you just hear these similar musical threads in his music. It's very compelling to me. And so, that tour had also taken us to Spain and a lot of other places, and I just started to sort of daydream one afternoon back in the States about what his life could have been like. He had a very hard life, as you know, and if anybody knows about him, he was blind. He suffered from terrible tuberculosis, but he was widely recognized as maybe Turkey's greatest Anatolian folk musician. And so I started thinking about what if he traveled and moved around and went to Spain. And since we've done so many shows in Spain on that tour, I had some great impressions about that. So I just started sort of putting some crazy stories in my head together to try to kind of celebrate me being a new fan. I guess that's